Hello students, I hope you would all be fine. Today we are going to discuss the various themes of Lord of the Flies by William Golding. Let's discuss the themes. First of all, what is the theme or the main idea? Actually, themes are the fundamental and often universal ideas explored in a literary work. It is actually the gist of the whole knowledge. It is the gist of the said knowledge, expressed knowledge. The first major theme of the Lord of the Flies is civilization versus savagery. We know that there is always a conflict between vice and virtue, and this conflict is found from the beginning of the world, and we have the concept that this conflict remains till the end of the world. So let's discuss the conflict of vice and virtue, the conflict of true and false. The central concern of Lord of the Flies is the conflict between two competing impulses that exist within all human beings: the instinct to live by rules, act peacefully, follow moral commands, and value the good of the group against the instinct. This is the instinct of goodness, true. And the other instinct is that the instinct to gratify one's immediate desire, act violently to obtain supremacy over others, and enforce one's will. As we discussed in the previous lecture, that Francis Bacon has beautifully said that it is strange desire of man to seek power and to lose liberty, and to seek power over others and to lose power over man's self. This is the instinct of man to get supremacy by any means. This conflict might be expressed in a number of ways: civilization versus savagery, order versus chaos, reason versus impulse, law versus anarchy, or the broader heading of good and evil. Throughout the novel, Golding associates the instinct of civilization with good and the instinct of savagery with evil. The conflict between the two instincts is the driving force of the novel, explored throughout the dissolution of the young English boy's civilized, moral, disciplined behavior as they accustom themselves to a wild, brutal, barbaric life in the jungle. Lord of the Flies is an allegorical novel, which means that Golding conveys many of his main ideas and themes through symbolic characters and objects. He represents the conflict between civilization and savagery in the conflict between the novel's two main characters: Rolf, the protagonist, who represents order and leadership, who is the symbol of goodness. Rolf is the symbol of goodness, and Jack, the antagonist, who represents savagery and the desire for power, and who represents or who symbolizes the evilness, the vice qualities. As the novel progresses, Golding shows how different people feel the influences of the instinct of civilization and savagery to different degrees. As Milton beautifully said that mind is its own place, can make a heaven of hell, a hell of heaven. As your mind propagates, you search out the related people and you ultimately found the same minded people. This is actually the philosophy expressed in the Lord of the Flies. Piggy, for instance, has no savage feelings, while Roger seems barely capable of comprehending the rules of civilization. Generally, however, Golding implies that the instinct of savagery is far more primal and fundamental to the human psyche than the instinct of civilization. It means that the instinct of savagery is dominant in the humans as compared to the instinct of civilization. Uh, Lord of the Flies is an allegorical novel. We will discuss another question or in another lecture that Lord of the Flies is an allegorical novel. Golden sees moral behavior in many cases as something that civilization forces upon the individual rather than a natural expression of human individuality. When left to their own devices, Golding implies people naturally revert to cruelty, savagery, and barbarism. As I have discussed in the previous slide, that uh, the instinct of barbarity, the instinct of uh, uncivilized nature is dominant in the human character as compared to the civilization instinct of civilization. This idea of innate human evil is central to the Lord of the Flies and finds expression in several important symbols, most notably the beast and the sow's head on the stake. Among all characters, only Simon seems to possess anything like a natural, innate goodness. Next theme is the loss of innocence. The loss of innocence. As we see or we read the novel Lord of the Flies, we come to know that the circumstances in which the boys are leading the days of their life are struggling or difficult, and the boys converted into the evilness, their good nature converted into the evilness. So let's discuss the loss of innocence. As the boys on the island progress from well behaved, orderly children longing for rescue to cruel, bloodthirsty hunters who have no desire to return to civilization, they naturally lose the scene of innocence. Sorry, lose the sense of innocence that they possessed at the beginning of the novel. As we see in the beginning of the novel, the boys are cultured. They showed as civilized people, but as the time passes and they faced various circumstances of barbarism, they converted or they converted into the uncivilized people. The painted savages in chapter 12 who have hunted, tortured, and killed animals and human beings are a far cry from the guileless children swimming in the lagoon in chapter 3. But Golding does not portray this loss of innocence as something that is done to the children. Rather, it results naturally from their increasing openness to the innate evil and savagery that has always existed within them. He actually wants to say that the Barbarism or savagery is the innate ability of the humankind. Humans. It is the innate ability of the humans. It is not our surrounding ability. It is not found our surrounding environment, but it is found in innerness of the boys or the humans. Golding implies that civilization can mitigate but never wipe out the innate evil that exists within all human beings. It can't be eradicated 100%. It remains in the humankind. This ability, the ability of uncivilized nature or the ability of savagery, is innate ability of the humankind, and it can't be completely eradicated. The forest glade in which Simon sits in chapter 3 symbolizes this loss of innocence. At first, it is a place of natural beauty and peace, but when Simon returns later in the novel, he discovers the bloody sows had impaled upon a stake in the middle of the clearing. The bloody offering to the beast has disrupted the paradise that existed before, a powerful symbol of innate human evil disrupting childhood innocence. Let's discuss our next theme: struggle to build civilization. Struggle to build civilization. The struggle to build civilization forms the main conflict of Lord of the Flies. Rolf and Piggy believe that structure, rules, and maintaining a signal fire are the greatest priorities, while Jack believing hunting, violence, and fun should be prioritized over safety, protection, and planning for the future. We discussed earlier that there is a conflict between vice and virtue. There is a conflict between true and false. So these two factions symbolizes the same nature, the true and false, the goodness and the evilness. While initially the boys, including Jack, agree to abide by Rolf's rules and democratic decision making, the slow and thoughtful process of building an orderly society proves too difficult for many of the boys. They don't want to help build the shelters, maintain the signal fire, or take care of the little ones. Littleness is the shortest term which is made by joining the two words little and ones. Little ones. This is actually the little ones, littlens. The immediate fun and visceral rewards of hunting, chanting, and dancing around the fire are more attractive than the work of building a sustainable society. Near the end of the novel, even Ralph is tempted by Jack's authoritarian regime, regularly forgetting why the fire and rescue is so important. Actually, these basically two powers, the power of goodness and the power of evilness. And when one power is dominant, it gets the hold, it gets the more power than the power of the other theme. Then we move towards the next theme: man's inherent evil. As we discussed earlier, the evilness is the innate ability of the human. It is found in the innerness of the human. So let's discuss the fact that the main characters in Lord of the Flies are young boys suggest the potential for evil is inherent even in small children. He is trying to say that even small children had the innate ability of the evilness. Jack, for example, is initially keen for rules and civility, but becomes obsessed with hunting, frightened and empowered by the promise of violence. Jack's desire to control and subjugate proves more powerful than his desire for empathy, intellect, and civilization. As I have said earlier that the Francis Bacon has beautifully said that it is strange desire of man to seek power and to lose liberty, and to seek power over others and to lose power over man's self. And Jack becomes a brutal and leader. Even Ralph and Piggy, who both strive to maintain their sense of humanity, ultimately join in over the mass murder of Simon, momentarily surrendering to the thrill of violence and mass hysteria. While Piggy tries to ignore their participation, Ralph is devastated when he realizes that he is no better than Jack or Roger, and that he has a darkness inside as well. But the character of Simon suggests humans can resist their inherently violent tendencies. The only boy who never participates in the island's savagery, Simon has the purest moral code and is able to remain an individual throughout Lord of the Flies. While the others consider him weak and strange, Simon strains up for Piggy and Littleton's, helps Rolf builds the shelters and provides throughout an insight assessment of their predicament. Simon recognizes that the beast is not a physical beast, but perhaps the darkness and innate brutality within the boys themselves. He is actually trying to say that the beast is not actually found in the physical shape, but beast is the quality or the character or the innate ability found in the human, found in the inner self of the children or the human. After a terrifying conversation with the Lord of the Flies, Simon recognizes the paratrooper as a symbol of fear and the boys as agents of evil and runs to tell the others. But Simon is never able to properly explain this to the other boys before they beat him to death in a frenzy of excitement and fear. Then moves toward the next theme of the now Lord of the Flies: dangers of mob mentality. Dangers of mob mentality. Lord of the Flies explores the dangers of mob mentality in terrifying scenes of violence and torture. Early on, the boys sing "Kill the pig, cut her throat, spill her blood" after a successful hunt, elevating their shared act of violence into a celebratory chant. By coming together as a mob, the boys transform the upsetting experience of killing an animal into a bonding ritual. Acting as one group, the boys are able to commit worse and worse crimes, deluding one another into believing in the potential danger posed by the beast justifies their violence. Similarly, the boys use war paint to hide their identities as individuals and avoid personal responsibilities. Ralph, Piggy, and Samnarek both fear and envy the hunters' liberation into savagery. It is actually trying to say that, as we discussed earlier, it is the innate ability, and we get player in doing such like evil things. Their desire to be part of the group leads to voluntary participation in the rituals, dance, and brutal killing of Simon. The mob's sheer irrational fear and proclivity toward violence results in a devastating act of ultimate cruelty. As some author beautifully said that as flies to wanton boy are we to God, they kill us for their sport. Next theme is war and the future of mankind. War and the future of mankind. Set during a global war, Lord of the Flies offers a view of what society might look like trying to rebuild after a large scale man made catastrophe. In their attempt to rebuild society, the boys cannot agree on a new order and eventually fall into savagery. Ralph comes to realize that social order, fairness, and thoughtfulness have little value in a world where basic survival a struggle. Such as after a devastating war, the paratrooper who lands on the island reminds the reader that while the boys are struggling to survive peacefully on the island, the world at large is still at war. Even in their isolation and youth, the boys are unable to avoid violence. In their descent into torture and murder, they mirror the wearing world around them. So, this is all about the themes of the Lord of the Flies. Students, if you have any query or question in your mind, then please do ask me in comment. Thank you.